Alrighty. Well, we can go ahead and kick things off. Everyone can hear me, can see me, right? No more technical issues. Okay, perfect. So, welcome to how to optimize your climate job searching strategy. We're super excited to have all of you here today to unveil our climate job seeker playbook. This has been a long, long time coming. It's been multiple months that we've been working on creating this playbook to help everyone get a job in climate. So we're super excited to have all of you here to unveil it with all of you. So before we kick things off, go ahead and drop in the chat what made you sign up for today's session? Why are you here today? Is it getting a job in climate? Is it because you want to maybe get a job in climate? You're unsure? Yeah, let me know in the chat. Getting a job in climate. Cool. Awesome. Perfect. Sounds good. Excited to learn about job tactics, background. Awesome. Seems like we're all here to get a job and learn how we can best position ourselves. So hopefully our playbook can help all of you do just that. Perfect. So a little background on me. Hi, my name is Natalie Lavery. I am the marketing lead at Climate People. I'll get into who Climate People is in a minute, but essentially I have a background in grassroots environmental advocacy. I really wanted to work in the environmental space, but didn't know that marketing jobs or tech jobs in climate existed at this point in my career. So I was working at Greenpeace and the Sierra Club and a few other nonprofit organizations, and kind of just quickly realized that that space wasn't the best use of my skill set. So I ended up leaving and then just got a job in big tech, but hated not having that environmental element in that job. And then I came across Climate People's founder, Brendan, and discovered that the whole entire world of climate tech. And so, yeah, here I am today. Haven't looked back since. And it's super awesome to know that there are jobs for everyone in this climate industry, and it's not this niche little environmental space. Awesome. So Climate People is a climate recruitment agency. Essentially, we operate as any other recruitment agency would. However, we only work with companies that are focused on climate. So we hire across all job types, everything from marketing to sales to engineering to product, everything in between across all climate sectors, as you can see on the bottom of the screen here. So what we've all been waiting for about the playbook. So this playbook is the ultimate guide for climate job seekers. As I mentioned a few seconds ago, it's essentially going from laying the foundation for your climate job search all the way to offer negotiation. And it has a lot of examples of people who've done it. It has templates and a lot of knowledge. It's 30 pages. So we are excited to launch it. It's entirely free. Hopefully it can help all of you. So today, what we're going to do is go through some of the key points from the playbook and kind of hit them home, and then end with you with your own copy, and you can have the first access to it since you're here today. Quickly, an agenda for today. We're going to go over some of the goals of the playbook, what a climate job even is, how to lay the foundation, outlining the why of your job search, some resume LinkedIn optimization, a deep dive into networking, a deep dive into interviewing, offer negotiation, as we mentioned, remaining optimistic, and then a social competition to hopefully have you win a one-on-one coffee chat with Climate People's founder. We're also going to have 2 breakout rooms so that all of you can get to know each other and practice some of the things that we're going to talk about today. So according to Terra.do, which is a climate education platform, if you have not heard of them, I would highly recommend checking them out. They say that we need 100 million people working in climate by the end of the decade to address the demands of the climate crisis. So that means that 99% of the people working in this space in the next 10 years have not yet begun. So this slide is here to show you that there's a demand for you. And even if the job search might seem a little bit tricky at this point in the process, there's a demand for you, and that demand is only continuing to grow. So you are in the right place. Perfect. So some more little bit on our goals for this is, as I just mentioned, we need millions of people in this space. So that is not limited to, like I mentioned, the niche environmental nonprofit sector. That is across all industries, across all job types, and across all sectors. So again, you're in the right space, and there is a space for you in climate. And then also alongside that, a lot of times people believe that climate jobs are limited to climate nonprofit or not climate startups. So like these niche little climate startups. However, climate jobs are, again, all across all industries. They're in corporations, they're in Fortune 500 companies, they're in startups. Every different job is an opportunity to become a climate job. And then also, if you're here, you've likely noticed that the climate job search is different than a traditional one. It's more nuanced, it's tricky, and there is a strategy for the timing, the approach, and the tactics. And we're going to get into that today. So ultimate goal of this is to teach you how to position yourself effectively, how to excel in job applications, how to land interviews, and how to ultimately use your networking skills to get a job in climate. So let's start with the basics. I'm assuming a lot of you know this if you're here right now, but what even is climate tech? Due to its recent emergence, there's a lot of different variations and definitions of climate tech. But at Climate People, we break it up into 3 different terms: emissions reduction, climate adaptation, and carbon removal. So essentially, any technology that is working to eliminate, remove, or reduce the harms of climate change are considered a climate product. And those products can fit into those 3 buckets that I outlined above. So emissions reduction is kind of as it sounds, any technology that's reducing emissions. So that's your solar panels, your electric vehicles, anything that's rewriting the way that we do things to lower emissions. Then we have climate adaptation, which says the effects of climate change are already here and we need to be resilient in the face of them. So that's your flood proofing, your fireproofing innovations, drones that can track wildfires, kind of all of those technologies. And then lastly, we have carbon removal, which again is as it sounds, any technology that's removing carbon. That's your carbon captures, your repurposing carbons into diamonds, kind of all of those technologies. So then every job at one of these companies is considered a climate tech job. So the person who is marketing the solar panels, the person who is designing the electric vehicles, the person who is selling the electric vehicles, and so on and so forth, are all working in climate jobs. And the same goes for corporations. If you're helping your corporation start their employee resource group that's focused on the environment, if you're starting a recycling program, you are therefore making your job a climate job. Kind of a broad term, but then it encapsulates all of these other jobs within that. So kind of got into this a little bit earlier on, but what is a climate job? So you're not going to get a job at a climate tech startup. You're making your job a climate job, as coined by Project Drawdown. Simply means that you don't have to work at a climate-focused company or startup to have a job. As you all know, corporations hold a significant amount of power. And if we have people inside that organization to leverage and push for climate advocacy, that is a big plus for the environment. So you don't have to be in a climate startup to have a climate job. And yeah, basically going to keep reiterating that throughout. So now we're going to get into a few real life scenarios that I see on a daily from climate job seekers, and then some solutions to that. And then we're going to go into a quick little breakout room where we can discuss some of the issues that you're currently facing in your job search. So one of the biggest pitfalls that I've seen is that climate jobs oftentimes require years of climate experience. And a lot of people don't have years of climate experience. Second one is a lot of climate companies are expecting people to have climate mission alignment, meaning they're innately passionate about this stuff and can convey that in a compelling way. The third is a lot of people are seeing a lack of supporting roles. So when they're doing their climate job search, they're seeing a lot of engineering, data roles, machine learning, kind of that type of stuff. However, they're not seeing as many like marketing or sales or product jobs. That's another issue we've been seeing. And then a lot of lack of entry-level positions. A lot of these roles are requiring 5+ years of experience. So some of the solutions that I've seen work and that I've been brainstorming have been laying a foundation for your job search before you start. So having a really strong grasp on where you're going to go before you start doing so. We'll go over that. Understanding your why. We'll also go over this, but again, knowing yourself and knowing why you want a job in this space will help exponentially. Third is optimizing your application materials for climate. They're different than your traditional job search resume and LinkedIn. We'll go over that as well. And then lastly, and most importantly, is networking. Okay, awesome. So now I'm going to put all of you into breakout rooms. So we are going to go into breakout rooms of 3 people. So we're going to do 1 minute each. And I want all of you to simply talk about the struggles that you have been facing. So yeah, let me have a hard time talking while I'm doing this. So essentially 1 minute each, all of you are going to talk about what hurdles you're currently facing in your job search. And you can brainstorm solutions if you have time. It's going to be quick, only 3 minutes. All right. And off you go. Cool. So does anyone want to share one of the struggles that they experienced? Feel free to raise your hand or just put it in the chat or come off mute, whatever one is easiest for you.
Yeah, I'll go. Oh, we also have Fab here.
No, go for it. You're already talking.
I'd rather let people go put their hands up first. And I know Fab too, so I let him go.
All right, go for it, Fab then.
Is this the most Canadian thing ever or what?
Say what?
I said, like, is it the most Canadian thing ever or what? Because I'm coming from Toronto. Very brief. I was sharing, like, for me, I really care about joining a very, very early stage company, like 5 employees, 10 employees at most, not even that I raise money. And the challenge that you have is that when you want to hire someone like this, you ask your network. So a lot of networking to be done, which I'm doing. And the reason for this is that you don't really hire someone you don't know. So a lot of like referral, word of mouth. So that's my challenge. Like I'm really resilient on the space and the challenge really finding this company, especially like given the limited quantity of companies here in Toronto on the space. That's it.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. Cool. I wish we had more time to share, but unfortunately we got a lot of information to cover. So thank you for all offering, but hopefully you could have shared that with your group. Awesome. So now we're going to get into laying the foundation for your job search. Right. If you wouldn't mind muting yourself if you're not muted, I think I can mute everybody. All right. Perfect. Okay, cool. So the entire thing of the climate job search is essentially a 3-step process. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is to learn, network, and leverage. And this is really why the climate job search differs from any traditional job search. So in any traditional job search, you would just start looking for jobs and you would apply for them and then you would kind of go from there. But with climate, it's going to be the opposite. So what I'm encouraging you to do is to learn. So we'll get into this a little bit deeper on, but essentially this just means to dive deep into the climate industry. As I touched on earlier, a lot of climate companies are wanting you to have this passion and they're expecting you to convey that compellingly. So in order to do that, you need to know as much about the space as possible. So the first step is to learn about all of the climate sectors. There's a lot of great resources out there. I'll share some after. And then pinpoint 3 sectors or solutions that fascinate you. It can be anything from regenerative agriculture to electric vehicles, whatever it is that fascinates you, pick 3 of them. And then those are going to be the focus of your job search. The entire presentation is going to all be about narrowing down and niching down your job search. So to do that first, you're going to pick your 3 solutions you're interested in, and then you're going to network. So you're going to start learning about the big companies, the startups, the big players in the space of the solution that you're fascinated by. And then you're going to only reach out to people within that space. And from these conversations, you're going to learn even more about these technologies. You're going to learn more about the companies, how they operate, and you're going to get to know the people. And most importantly, make a name for yourself. And then last, you're going to leverage. So many people forget to do this. They forget that they put all this work into learning and then they don't, and networking, and then they don't even ask these people for connections. So then from there, you're going to apply to jobs, network, sell yourself to companies, and then you're going to use those connections that you just made to put in a good word for you. So high level, this is the 3-step process for getting a job in climate. Next, before you do any of this, you need to know why you're looking for a job. I kind of touched on this, but this is super important, and it seems a little bit obvious before you start thinking about it. But I promise once you actually sit down and start outlining your why, you're going to come across a lot of realizations that you did not have before. So the job application process is all about convincing someone else that you are a good fit for the job. But you can't convince anyone else if you haven't convinced yourself. So make sure you know from day one, your why should include why you want a job in climate. So broad, why you want a job in climate. It could be you've cared about trees since you were a kid. It could be your graduate program you did in ecology, whatever it is, why you're passionate about getting a job in climate, why you're passionate about the climate solution that you just outlined. Remember, you just chose 3. You should have some reasonings as to why you care about those climate solutions. And then third, why you want to work at this specific company or for this specific job. So as you can see, it's kind of like a funnel of your whys. You need to understand all of them before you start having networking conversations. This why should be the objective statement on your resume when you're submitting it to a company. When you're doing networking conversations and someone says, tell me about yourself, this is what you should be saying. On your LinkedIn, maybe a little bit more broad. You don't want to talk about a specific company on your LinkedIn, but you kind of get the gist. This is the North Star of your entire job search. From there, you're going to want to optimize your resume based on the foundation that we just touched on. Your resume is a little bit more generic to any job search. These tips are universal, whether you're applying to climate or you're applying to big tech, but they're still super important. So the first is to keep it concise. Don't have it too long. You do not need more than 2 pages on your resume, I promise. If you're struggling to keep it under 2 pages, you can show your career progression. So instead of saying, I had these 4 entry-level marketing jobs, you could have a section on your resume that says early level career achievements and outline some of the key takeaways. The most important thing I will say to you about resumes is keywords, keywords, keywords. You need to be optimizing your resume for keywords. Around 72% of resumes are never viewed by a real human. They're filtered through an applicant tracking system. And if you don't have the keywords on your resume that are on the job description, it's not going to flag you and you'll never get a chance. So I always recommend every job that you apply to, make sure you take the resume, put it into ChatGPT Works. There's a bunch of other tools as well. And then paste the job description in and ask ChatGPT to help you pull the keywords and match your resume. And it will tell you the keywords and then make sure they're on your resume and make sure you're updating this for every job that you apply to. Also need to be quantifying your resume for impact. So this just means don't just tell me that you did something, really show me how you did it. So don't just say, I created a software. Say, I created a software using these tools, which are going to be your keywords. And this software had this impact on the company in our profit, our revenue, or whatever the impact was. Again, I've already said this, super important, customize it for each role you're applying to. And then if you're have any climate projects or climate experience, done any cohorts, all of those deserve a place on your resume. If you're applying for climate, they're looking for those climate buzzwords. So definitely include those. If you're entry level, you can have a section on your resume that is carved out for relevant projects. You can list those as you would your experience. Perfect. So now we are going to go on to some resume examples. So as I touched on, you want to quantify your impact and you want to have keywords. So these are some examples of really good bullets under the experience section of your resume. So for example, they can say that you designed, tested, and built a new product that improved flow efficiency by 57%. You're not just saying you improved flow efficiency, you're showing how you did it. You could say you supervised a team of 5 while leading a robust software upgrade, which increased your team's capacity tenfold. Again, you're not just saying I managed a team. You're saying you managed a team while doing this and how that affected the overall company. Last is you wrote and executed modular code in Python, React, and Go that is currently being used by over 150,000 users worldwide. You have the keywords in there that are likely in the job description, and then you're also showing your impact. Obviously, apply these to your own industry and your background, but as you can get the gist here, not just showing, not just telling, you're showing. Cool. Your LinkedIn is essentially your virtual resume. So you need to have a strong LinkedIn presence. If you're applying for a job, they're going to look at your LinkedIn and it needs to impress from the very beginning. So a great way to do this is to have a headline that is packed full of keywords and is set out to impress. So for example, your headline, which is like the little thing under your name, it doesn't have to be your current job. It honestly shouldn't be your current job. It's a great opportunity to stuff it with keywords. Recruiters and a lot of hiring managers have a back-end access to LinkedIn where they can search it as they would a database. And they're putting those keywords in. And the people who have those keywords in their headline are coming up first. So if you're looking for a product manager job in climate, please, please, please have product manager in climate in your headline. And it's going to drastically increase your chances of showing up on those hiring managers' dashboards. You can also have 50 tags, skill tags on your LinkedIn. If you scroll to the bottom of a profile, it has your skills. Most people have like 4. They're like, okay, I'm really good at copywriting. I'm really good at website design. And then they stop. But again, those are all keywords. So make sure you're using all 50. Start looking at job descriptions that you want to apply to and take note of the recurring keywords. If you have that skill, use it as a skill on your LinkedIn profile. And again, I already said this, but your LinkedIn headline does not have to be your current role. It can be aspirational. Don't lie about your experiences. So don't put your aspirational role as your experience section because that actually is saying you have experience. However, your headline can be aspirational. It can say product climate, even if you're not in product or in climate quite yet. Another thing with LinkedIn is to be extremely active. It's a great way to make a name for yourself, a personal brand, have the algorithm draw people to you. So start posting about your climate job search, start talking about things you're learning, about the solutions you're interested in. Be active, comment on other people's profiles, and so on and so forth. Last but not least, show you're available to work. Even if you're currently employed and you don't want your employer to see it, there are settings that you can say, only let external recruiters see this. So again, on the back end, when they're looking, you'll still show up, even though your current boss can't see that you're currently listing or looking for work. Here are some great examples of people who did their LinkedIn headline exceptionally well. The blue is the keywords. So data scientist, data mining, experience in Tableau and Python. And then the black is that qualified impact statement that we touched on, showing, not just telling. So make this your own, but great formula to follow for your LinkedIn headline. And I will share this presentation after. So don't fret to copy these down. I can share it out with all of you. Perfect. And most importantly is networking deep dive. So I'm going to encourage you to spend 80% of your time networking. I know this seems wild. When you're looking for a job, you should be spending 80% of your time looking for a job or applying for jobs. But essentially in climate, networking is how you're going to get a job. Estimates say that around 60 to 70% of jobs are never posted. So that means people are finding these jobs through their connections, their networking conversations, and they're never posting them online. So that means that if you're only applying for jobs, you're missing out on over half of the jobs that are out there for you. So as you've likely seen by now, if you've been in here for a while, climate is an extremely connected community. It's a niche space, it's growing. A lot of people know each other, and that makes referrals easier for you. But also it means that it even heightens the importance of networking even more. I encourage you to join Slack communities. A lot of climate communities live on Slack. There's Work on Climate, there's MCJ Collective, Terra.do, Tofu, Climate Action Tech. The list kind of continues to go on. Highly recommend joining those, getting to know people and actively networking within there. Another key with networking is to create a timeline and goals. Kind of with anything in life, when you just say, oh, I'm going to go network, I'm going to get a job in climate, it's really overwhelming. Whereas if you break it up into little sections and like, I'm going to set up 3 networking conversations a week, that seems a lot more obtainable than doing 15 a month or whatever it may be. So take it down in chunks, set goals, be realistic with yourself. And then again, the key for your networking conversation is to make a lasting impression. So you want to go into this conversation being prepared. You want to have done your homework on the company. You don't want to ask questions that seem obvious. You want to show that you've done your homework. Kind of the more you're putting into this, the more you're going to get out. My favorite networking tip is to end every single conversation with, who else in your network do I recommend that you recommend I talk to? That way you're getting so many different connections already sent your way, and it's less work that you have to do. And then another tip is to remain niche. As we talked about the funnel approach to your job search, this especially rings true here. Again, don't just say I'm networking in climate. Say I'm networking in the electric vehicle space. I'm networking in the regenerative agriculture space. That way you're going to really get to know the players in that space and make a name for yourself in that industry, which is a lot more attainable than making a name for yourself in the entire climate industry. So stick to those 3 sectors that you outlined before. Here are some really good formulas to follow for networking. Again, I'm going to send this presentation out, so don't need to write these all down if you don't want to. But if you have already applied for a job, so say you're going the typical application route and you submit an application, you need to follow up. And networking is still a good idea to do even after you've sent the application. So I would follow this formula. I would say which job you applied for, a direct tie to the company's climate mission, some quantifiable impact statement, there they are again, about why you're qualified for the job. And then, of course, a call to action that says you want to talk more about the position, about the company, whatever it is. If you just want to network, so if you're following the more networking approach, not necessarily looking for jobs, but building your community first, a good formula to follow is a common connection. If you have one, it could be as simple as we're both members of Work on Climate. We went to the same university. Looks like we're both interested in agriculture, whatever it is, have a common connection. Then you're going to want to say why you want to talk to them. It could be, I'm really impressed by your background. You're exactly where I want to be in 5 years, whatever it is. But then most importantly, you're going to say what you can offer them. Networking is a 2-way street. They want to get something from you just as much as you want to get something from them. A lot of people struggle with this. They say, I have no climate experience. How can I help them? I'm entry level. This is my first job out of college. How can I help them? I encourage you to kind of flip that on its head. Think about an executive in carbon capture. They've been in their industry for 15 years. They know everything there is to know about carbon capture. However, they're looking to hire an entry-level marketing person who likely doesn't know that much about carbon capture. They're going to want to know how their solution can be marketed to people who don't have this really in-depth knowledge of their solution. And the fact that you haven't been immersed in the space for 15 years is a benefit for you to talking to them. So there's always something that you can offer. Don't sell yourself short. Again, the entire job search is about convincing someone why you're qualified. So the first step is convincing yourself, and that often is the hardest part, but can't be overlooked if you're going to get a job in this space. And then, of course, again, a call to action about getting their availability to talk more. So those are some networking formulas, but this slide is my favorite slide of the entire presentation. It's all about selling your value. So kind of like we just touched on about how you have to be able to convince yourself to be able to convince someone else. I'm going to give you a brief little scenario of how a recruiter's mind works. So say I'm a recruiter and I am working on 10 jobs for my clients. None of them are software engineering positions. So I don't have any software engineering positions. However, a person from Google with 10 years of experience, this incredible background, is a dream candidate for any of my companies. I know that, but they don't have the job posted. I'm going to meet this person and I'm still going to write up a little blurb about their background, and I'm going to send it to all 10 of my clients. And I guarantee you 9 out of 10 of them are still going to want to interview this person, even though the job never existed. Because startups, and a lot of climate companies are startups, often don't have the time or the capacity to think through their hiring trajectory. They're kind of just waiting for the person to be in front of them. And then they're like, oh yeah, this person would be a great addition to my team. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is take that recruiter mindset and apply it to your climate job search. It's all about accessing that hidden job market that we just touched on. As we said, around 70% of jobs are never posted. They're waiting for that person, and that person could be you. So in order to do this, again, it's a 3-step process. It tends to be a theme here. First, you're going to understand your skill set. So you're really going to know what you're good at, and you're going to do that market map. of the 3 different sectors that you're interested in. So you're going to know the companies and you're going to know your skill set, and you're going to start looking at these companies and seeing where you could add value. So if you're a product person and you come across a product that you notice some gaps in it and you're like, ooh, this isn't great, I could fix that. That's what you're going to lead with. You're not looking for jobs here. You're looking for issues and how you can position yourself as a solution to those issues. Hopefully this is making sense. But before you have these networking conversations, you're going to want to be able to articulate your impact. So like we said, product person, you're noticing those issues. You're going to sit down with yourself and you're going to do the homework about how you would solve those issues. And then you're going to send a networking outreach message to whether it be the founder, the head of product, whoever you think is relevant, about how you could add value to their company. Timing is important here. We've seen that a lot of companies, early stage companies, tend to hire their technical people first and then their supporting roles later on. So if you're in product, probably not, or if you're in marketing or sales, probably not the best idea to go after a pre-seed company because they're likely not thinking of marketing yet. It'd probably be smarter to go after companies that are a little bit later on. So in essence, I know I explained it, but on a high level here, what you're trying to do is not look for jobs, look for opportunities, and then you're going to pitch yourself to the company. So to bring it to life here with an example, I'm going to go over the second one first because I think it sets it up really well. It's titled Unsolicited Advice. This is a real life person that Climate People worked with. They were chatting with our founder and said, I don't have a resume. I'm not creating a resume. And any person in the job, the career space would be like, you can't do a job search without a resume. That is wild. But this person was dead set on not having a resume because they were sure that if they did this work, their product person, if they went and found these products that they were confident they could help, they could just get a job through networking. And they did. So they would find companies with a product where they could add value. They would send over a message that said, this is what I noticed about your product. This is how I can help. I've done this in the past with this result, and sent a compelling message. And that led to 80% response rate. They were getting an 80% response rate from founders. And then 50% of those conversations led to engaging conversations and potential opportunities. So it works. But again, you have to do it well in order to do it. And then the first is a generalist, another Climate People candidate. She was a generalist with experience in customer success and process, was super knowledgeable about cities and buildings. So that's where they've directed their search to, niched it down to that, and then focused on smaller companies where she knew that the generalist knowledge would be important, and then networked there and got a job. So it does really work. And I would highly recommend at least trying it and seeing if it works for your job search. This is a good template to follow if you're going to send an outreach message to someone trying to get a job that's not posted. I'm not going to read it to you now. Feel free to do a little glance over it if you want. And then again, I'm going to send this out. It's also all in the playbook as well. All right, we unfortunately don't have time for the second breakout room, but I was going to have you practice your networking skills. So at home, after you log off of this call, think through your impact statements and about how you could add value. Tell it to a family member, tell it to a friend. The key here is to practice. That's why I was going to have you go in breakout rooms, because it's one thing, again, to be like, oh yeah, I'm in marketing, I'm good at building websites. It's another thing to have to convey that to someone else. So I'd highly recommend practicing to yourself in a mirror, or if not, to someone else later today or sometime this week. Okay, perfect. Now we are going to quickly dive into some interview tips. So the interview, a lot of people celebrate the interview as if they've got the job, and that's great. You should celebrate your milestones and be proud of yourself for getting an interview. However, it's just as important to prepare here as it is for your job applications. In order to crush your interview, you need to have done your homework. So this might seem intuitive, but again, I'm going to outline it because it's super important. Make sure you have researched the company extensively, and then also the people who will be interviewing you. You're going to want to approach this interview just as you would the hidden job market. Have ideas of how you can help. So many people are scared to go into interviews and be like, if I was in this role, I would do this. because they don't want to step on toes. However, they're inviting you to step on their toes. Be polite about it. Don't sabotage their product, but definitely take notes and show, don't just tell, show how you could improve it and what you would do in that position. The key here is to reflect back on that why that you outlined in the very beginning. They're going to ask you, why do you want this job? Give them an answer that's thought out and well articulated. They're also going to ask you if you have any questions for them. Please don't be the person that doesn't have a single question. That shows that you're not that interested in the job, and that's the absolute last thing you want to convey at this time. So ask questions, but think through these questions. Don't just ask questions that are already answered in the job description. Show that you've done your homework, that you've thought in depth about what you're going to be doing, and ask questions that show that. And then again, key is to show your value add. If you do your homework, you'll be able to convey that easily. And then lastly, after your interview, make sure you send a follow-up email to all of the people who interviewed you. You're going to really want to be unique, enthusiastic, and personalized to the interviewer. Again, so many job seekers I talk to are scared to say in the follow-up email that they want the job. You should explicitly say, thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I am thrilled about this opportunity. I would love this job. That shows that you actually want it. It does not make you look vulnerable. It makes you look eager, which is what you want to convey. And then here is an example of a really good email. Again, I'll share this with all of you, but you could say, thank you for discussing this position at this company. I was impressed by the company's commitment to whatever it was and believe that this skill set that I have would be a great fit. After our conversation, I researched this topic and found this resource that I think could be of value to you. And I really believe that my skill could help here, and I'm excited about contributing to this project. So that way you're showing initiative, you're going the extra mile, you're still viewing it as that symbiotic relationship. You're helping them just as they're helping you. Cool. So if you got an offer, that is huge. Congratulations. This is the one point in the interview process and then your entire tenure with the company where you have the upper hand. So I encourage you to take advantage of that. When they're offering you, when you're having discussions about your salary, I always encourage job seekers to let the company make the first offer. If you make the first offer, you risk saying something way lower than what they had in mind. Salary is super important. However, as you've seen, a lot of climate companies can compensate for lower salaries than big tech by flexible work hours, equity, vacation, whatever it is. All of this being said, make sure, again, you're honest with yourself before you get to this phase about what you want. So if you do have to give a salary number, if you're put on the spot, never say a number that's lower than you really want. If you are willing to take a lower number, but only do so if you get increased equity, make sure you're saying that. Again, one point in the process where you have the upper hand. So take advantage of that. But yeah, try to make them like to make the offer first. But if you do, and you're scared that you're saying a number too high, you can always say like, I understand this might be higher than you're expecting. I'm willing to hear what you had in mind. Don't just kind of end it with a blanket statement. Cool. So that is the gist of everything I had for you today. We do have a social competition, as cheesy as it may sound. During this presentation, a LinkedIn and an Instagram post went out. In 1 minute, I will drop a link to them in the chat. But if you like the post and you tag 2 people in your network in the comments, I will do a draw and we'll choose 2 people to win some Climate People swag, most importantly, and then a 1-hour job strategy workshop with Climate People's founder. This is valued at over $500. It's a 1-hour in-depth workshop where you can ask any questions you want, can get any questions answered. You can go over the strategy for your job search and get really tailored advice. Hopefully you learned some stuff today, but this was a very blanket overview applicable to hundreds of people, whereas this one-on-one conversation is all about you and your job search. So definitely go ahead and do that. It is not an opportunity that you would like to miss because I promise it would be of great value. Okay, perfect. So now I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to drop, first and most importantly, the link to our playbook in the chat so that all of you can get access to that and dive into it later on. Again, this was just the launching point. Today was to give you an overview. There is so much information in this playbook. So take the time after this call to go through it yourself. My inbox is always open if you have any questions. And then definitely, please participate in our social media competition so that you can get that hour session. Here is a link to the LinkedIn post that went out that you can comment on. Perfect. All right. And now we have 10 minutes for questions. So again, we can go ahead and have all of you raise your hands if you have questions, or you can go ahead and drop them in the chat and I will read them off. While people are thinking of questions. Some other things that I wanted to mention is Climate People has a bunch of events coming up. We have a in-depth networking session on November 9th, and then also a confidence workshop. I know we talked a lot about confidence, so I will drop a link to those as well, but I would highly recommend joining those too. Awesome, Mike. I saw you raise your hand first. Go for it.
Thanks. This has been really helpful. So I've been tailoring resumes to individual roles, but I'm curious if you have any suggestions for building sort of generic resumes to post on networking sites and job boards that without a specific role in mind, where you're trying to highlight a breadth of experience, particularly when the specific roles that you have previously might not be on the radar for climate recruiters.
Yeah, definitely. So I think this is really subjective to your industry. So for example, like I've been in marketing my entire career. So my resume would be very marketing oriented. Whereas if say, what industry are you in? What is your background?
My background is in user experience research.
Okay. And are you trying to stay in user experience or are you trying to switch?
I mean, ideally, but that no one's hiring for UX in climate. Okay. So I'm probably going to have to turn that experience into just a skill that gets used somewhere else.
Yeah. Okay. So then based off of your research and what roles you're looking at in climate, I would tailor your resume to those. So for example, say you're trying to get into marketing. I don't know what it would be, but you would take your user experience skills and kind of translate them into a marketing resume if that's the roles that you're seeing. But the thing with the general resume is that it can never be as tailored as you want it to be. I always recommend taking like 30 job descriptions that you're interested in. So taking 30 of them, copying, pasting all of them into wordcloud.com. And then WordCloud is going to tell you the top words that are being used over and over again in those job descriptions. Then I would take the top 10 to 15 words that popped up on WordCloud and make sure those are in your resume. That way it's more tailored to like 30 job descriptions as opposed to like one. But yeah, it's harder to do. And quite frankly, you're going to have way more luck doing individualized one and reaching out to company than you would just posting on a job board, but it doesn't hurt. So yeah, definitely. Cool. Julian.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation, Natalie. It was really helpful and informative. My question is, I found it really helpful to think about your niche, your focus areas, and 3 areas. Mm-hmm. Any thoughts on like how they connect with one another? Do you think that you should have 3 categories and like all in emissions reduction, and you're just really focused on that one section, or do you think how do you think about connection?
Yeah, that's a really great point. I say 3 because a lot of job seekers are like, I don't know, I just love climate jobs and I want a job in climate. And it's really hard for them to narrow it down to 1. But it's always better to have them connected, obviously. So say you are really interested in emissions reduction, then I would focus on that and then find 3 separate solutions within that. So then that way they continue to feed into each other even more. The whole goal of doing that was so that these connections can feed to each other and it's all of the work that you're doing is connected as opposed to being really fragmented. So yeah, the more connected they can be, if that's where your interests lie, the better. So yeah, that could be like looking at the built environment. That is a huge subset of different solutions. And then you could look at like green cement, you could look at like different lighting options and so on and so forth. But yeah, if you can, I would choose sector and then solutions within that sector. But don't limit yourself too much if that's not what you're interested in.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.